Good evening and welcome to the Monday, January 8th Muscatine School District Board of Education meeting. Madam Secretary, can you please take roll and help us determine the quorum, please?
Sure. Directors Connor.
Here.
Cooney. Here. DeBeat.
Here.
LaRue.
Here.
Phillips. Here. Schneider. Here. Sure. Director Sure is absent. Quorum is present.
Thank you. Next item is the Pledge of the Allegiance by Ashley Weepe's Ag class. Susan Clark Junior High, please stand.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Lord.
That was a special treatment for us. Thank you, Ag class. Thank you. So we move forward to our next item. We'd like to welcome all our visitors and media representatives. And with that, we move to student board representative updates, please.
Hello and welcome back from winter break. Students at MHS have received their second semester schedules, which means slight class changes, typically with electives. Also, student council will be coming back to plan for the two dances this semester, which would be Thaw, which is typically held in February, and then Prom, which will be held at like the end of April. And then Model UN is starting things off by Model UN is a student club that holds mock UN debates, and then they have started to prepare for their Chicago and New York trips by reading and writing their papers. Finally, the MHS Booster Cake Auction is happening on the 26th. This is where different sports put up cakes for their sports and clubs put up cakes for their auction, and during the boys and girls basketball games against Davenport North. The girls varsity game starts at 6, and we encourage all Muskie families to come to the cake auction to support our Muskie athletes by participating or watching the cake auction.
All right, so another thing that's happening is robotics just started back up. They started their season on Saturday this week. They're hoping to make it back to Worlds again for a third straight year, I think. It's in Houston, as it is every year. Sports are going as they usually go. Oh, they're going all right. And then not much has happened in January. It's a pretty bleak month. But Senior Survivor, which is happening in the end of February, the fundraising will start very soon. So there's going to be probably baked goods being sold at sporting events and everything. That's about all that's going on right now. But I wanted to mention that the snow coming tomorrow, I've been told that there will be a lot of people who, if school is canceled, that they'll probably not be there anyway. But just wanted to share that with the board. And they wanted to tell me to let people know that there are some people that live pretty far away, so they are worried about the weather. So keep that in mind when making your decision. And if it's not, there will probably be a lot of emails in your inbox, as there are every cold day there is in winter.
I feel like you're talking to me.
A snow day is always nice, so, you know.
I was planning to tell Trey, you are sitting next to the person who makes those decisions.
I think he knows.
Yeah. Any question for Kira or Trey? As usual, thank you for updating us and bringing all this information and sharing that with us. Thank you. Thank you. Good job. With that, we move into the next item, Citizen Speaks. If anyone in the audience wants to address the board, please step to the podium, state your name and address. You will have 3 minutes. Per Iowa code, we cannot respond or engage in any discussion during the board meeting.
Good evening. My name is Rod Smock. I live at 3128 Highway 61, Muscatine. Good evening to the members and Muscatine School Board. educators, and fellow parents. I'm here as a concerned grandparent of my student that's in the school district. I stand before you here today to bring attention to a matter that deeply affects my grandchild's health and well-being. Since mid-December, we've been facing a significant challenge regarding medical care during school hours. My grandchild has a medical condition for which they have been prescribed a specific supplement or vitamin that is to be administered at a specific time. While I understand that supplements or vitamins typically do not require a prescription, in this case, this supplement is an integral part of their treatment plan and endorsed by 6 medically licensed practitioners. Moreover, it is widely acknowledged that supplements and vitamins play a critical role in the overall health management for kids. This common understanding stems from a growing body of research and clinical experience, highlighting the importance of supplements in filling nutrition gaps, supporting immune function, and enhancing physical well-being. I personally utilize over-the-counter medications, vitamins, and supplements to improve my health, as I am confident most of you do as well. Why would we limit our children to prescribed pharmaceutical medications that are not natural to our bodies and often have side effects? The current law and policy in our school allows for the administration of these supplements. However, the school nurse has refused to provide it. As a result, a family member has been required to come to the school daily to ensure that the child receives the necessary treatment, a vitamin. Obviously, this affects the family. It affects interrupting the students' daily activities, interrupting the class. In light of these circumstances, I appeal to you, the stewards of our children's education and welfare, for your assistance. We respectfully request that the school board review the information and give us assistance so that a designated individual at the school could provide this supplement. The primary goal, obviously, is, to do what's best for the child. I trust that you guys can see that at some point, everyone could have a request of the school for different things and it could get out of hand. But when 6 licensed practitioners prescribe a vitamin to be given, it doesn't seem reasonable that a parent would have to leave work to come give their child a vitamin at school. And drama and all the parts that go with it just aren't necessary. It just doesn't pass the common sense test. Right? Thanks for your time.
Thank you for sharing your concern with us. Thank you. Anybody else would like to approach the board? As I mentioned before, basically you start with your name, address, you will have 3 minutes, and we cannot get engaged in any discussion. Yeah.
My name is Michelle Servidillo Elias. Good evening. Thank you for this. I live at 2629 Canterbury Road, Muscatine County. I know that we have a lot coming up with the governor giving her speech soon. I think it's the 9th. And we know that she's been considering some cuts, especially with the AEA funding. And I would just like to give some perspective, if I could, please. I have Tommy Elias, my stepson, who was born with microcephaly, and he went through the school system all the way through high school here at the Muscatine High School, and he graduated with the transitions program, and now he's currently with Crossroads, and he has his first job at Come and Go. Y'all can go say hi to him on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 9 to noon. And many of you know him. Many of you know Tommy Elias. Many of you have worked with him and have fallen in love with him. And this is his town. We bought our house here. We stay here. And this is our community because of Tommy. Because this town has embraced our son, and it would have not been possible without this funding to give him the education and the skills and the quality of life to be able to participate and have a life that when he was born and when he was little, nobody ever thought would be possible. So let me make this very, very clear. We cannot lose that money. Every life has purpose and meaning. And if the government is going to claim that they have a vested interest in every baby in the womb, they cannot turn around and then cut all the funding to all the resources that babies that are being born are going to need. We've already lost what? SNAP money, food money, lunch money, childcare money, healthcare money, money for new mothers. It's all been turned away, not applied for, refused to apply for. And all of these sources for what we need for our people, they're falling through the cracks. So we cannot claim that we care for all of these children and then take away the money for the programs that they so desperately need so that they can grow up and be successful like Tommy. Because if that's what we want for our communities, then we have to put in the time and the effort, and that takes money. Those teachers need to be paid. The paras need to be paid. There needs to be childcare. There needs to be respite care. You know what it was like for my husband growing up, trying to work and be a single dad and have a Tommy? He was lucky that he was able to take a job at the Muscatine Community College where he could do his hours around Tommy's needs. He could leave to get him to the school bus and get him home. We have to keep these sources of funding. We need to fight for them. And then we also need to look at alternatives. A nurse case manager can do the same things when it comes to recertifying at an insurance level, IEP, like at Crossroads, when Tommy needs his programs recertified or requalified through his health insurance. Those are the same basic things that need to be done, like what you would do with AEA. So finding ways to look at where things intersect or are redundant or the exact same, combine them and save money and find ways that you can work together with other organizations in the community. So thank you. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate all the hard work that you do. And I hope and I pray that we find ways to continue to excel and do what's best for all of the children in our school systems, all of the ones that need help, but also support your parents and make it easier for them to be successful in the community and with their jobs, because those parents need a lot of help because they don't have childcare either. Thank you.
Thank you, Michelle. Thank you. Anybody else would like to approach the podium? Okay, so moving forward with our agenda, the next item is the FY23 audit review, and I see Tom is already there, so he will be introducing our guest here.
Good evening. So tonight, we're going to review the FY23 audit. And I just want to point out that Friday, the audit committee met. That committee is made up of Adam Miller, Bill Harper, Mike Eversmeyer, and Vicki Brecky and Angie Johnson. Those two weren't able to attend. And then Matt Connard was also in attendance along with some members from my staff. So shout out to them. I feel like they bring a really good financial background in their particular areas and are familiar with audit reports. So they provide a really good insight to asking some really good questions about the financial stability, the financial status of Muscatine Community School District. So with that, I'm going to introduce to you Mia Frommeld, who's a partner with Bonesock and Frommeld, who will review with you the FY23 audit, and then later on the agenda, we'll need to approve the audit and place it on file. So thank you.
Thank you, Tom. I just had a few, as Tom mentioned, just a few slides to go over the audit results tonight, since we did meet with the audit committee last Friday and had a more in-depth review over the audit reports. Oh, I'm supposed to. No. Oh, there we go. Okay. Thank you. So to start, just some of the required communications, then we have 3 deliverables. We have the annual comprehensive financial report, which is the main bound document. And then there are 2 letters. One's called the board communication letter, and one is called the deficiency, control deficiency letter. We also perform 3 audits. There's the financial statement audit, which is an audit over your financial information. There's the government auditing standards audit, which is an audit on the internal control processes of the district and also compliance with state laws, regulations, and other agreements. And the federal single audit, which is an audit over your federal programs. The district expended $11.2 million in fiscal year 23 on federal grant programs. Of that amount, $6.1 million was for the ESSER COVID-19 funding, and $3.3 million was for the child nutrition program. One thing to point out that's a couple new items for the year is there was a new accounting standard over subscription-based information technology, which required some changes to how some accounting is done on subscriptions. As a result, there's going to be a restatement in the auditor's opinion, but there were no issues as a result of that. It's just an implementation of new accounting processes. And then for many years, you've gone without bonded debt, but in fiscal year 23, the district issued $25 million in revenue bonds for specific capital projects that will be paid in the future with sales tax funding. Oh, thanks. In terms of audit results then, of all those audits performed, for the financial statement audit, it's an unmodified opinion, which is the clean, highest level of opinion you can receive. I did mention they implemented a new accounting standard, which resulted in a restatement to opening equity, but it was not significant to the district. For the government auditing standards audit, there are no matters to report. There were no findings over the internal control processes and procedures, and there were no significant compliance items to report in regards to compliance with laws and regulations and debt agreements. The state has a required reporting section of the financial statements. There are no significant findings to report in that as well. For the federal single audit, we audited both the child nutrition program and the ESSER COVID-19 funding program. And also good news in that there were no findings over internal controls and no findings over compliance for that audit. So across the board, A+ report. Are there any questions?
Just say again, we're very fortunate to have Tom and his staff. They do a fantastic job year over year. If anybody, I highly recommend everybody go through and read the 157-page compensation report, or the comprehensive financial report. There's other compensation reports we've been discussing. But just overall, very clear, very professional. And again, to our auditing staff that comes in here and helps, it's more than just auditing, a lot of guidance, a lot of services provided by the firm. We appreciate that also. So thank you for what you guys have done.
Thank you.
And remember, later on, the board gets to vote on approving that report. But any other question? No? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Great work. Thank you. So moving forward with our agenda, the next item is the board targets goals report. And item A, students will graduate prepared for post-secondary options. Under this item, we have the 2023 Iowa Schools performance. Would you add?
Good evening. A few months ago, we were at a board meeting, and one of the requests is that we would come back and share progress and updates on the Muscatine School District schools. So tonight, I am just going to do a brief overview of our Iowa School Performance Profile. The Iowa School Performance Profile is an online tool that shows how schools are performing in the state of Iowa. And it is actually a website that you can go to that is accessible to everybody. So on the next slide. Thank you. The next slide, I'm not sure if I'm clicking this or not, so if Tony's doing it, thank you. On the next slide, it shows here how each school is measured. So these are the weightings that the state uses for that progress. And so here is the measure that they used in the current Iowa School Performance Profile. And as you can see, growth, the conditions for learning, and our graduation rate holds the highest percentage for our schools. Next year, however, there will be a change in the accountability measure weights. Some of the changes that we will be seeing for next year is that they'll be adding science for grades 5, 8, and 11. The average scale score that's used here will not be a part of the calculation. They've talked about removing the 5-year graduation rate. Also, removing conditions for learning, because there were a lot of concerns around the scoring of this survey. And then lastly, they were looking at adding chronic absenteeism. And I know there might be some other things that they're also talking about, but those were some of the highlights, unless you want to add any other.
No, and I think one of the things I'll just tell you about this, I think that is one of the challenges, is that year to year, the weight changes for these categories. So what you're seeing is the snapshot that was used for last year, which was different than the year before. And where that matters sometimes is as buildings are designated. I remember Susan Clark specifically, their scores went up, but the weighting changed. So although overall they went up, their accountability measure actually went down because they changed the weights, not because the performance went down, right? So again, I think the state is doing the right thing by changing. Conditions for learning is really, although, I think it's good to, identify where students are at. One of the challenges is within a category, let's say there's 10 questions. If they rank one of those questions low, the whole category is low, right? So there's been problems across the state with that, so they're removing that. Obviously, we're seeing attendance across the state. We've seen it here for a long time. We've been focused on it, but now the rest of the state is seeing that. So they're adding that to the accountability measure. And again, great. I think that puts us in a good position because we've been focused on it. My hope is that they leave it alone so that as we measure year to year towards this profile, we're measuring essentially the same thing. Even though the areas they're measuring are the same, when they change the weights, it changes the calculation. So hopefully they land on something, stick with it for a while. So I think that helps our buildings stay more focused on those pieces.
And I would say even though they do this changes, I think each of the schools still have goals around these areas. So we will still continue to work, obviously in all of these areas, but just the weighting changes for us. So.
Joelle, will that take away the climate of learning survey then?
Will it take?
No, we still will give the conditions
Oh,
for learning survey.
condition.
It just won't be factored into your accountability rating.
So I'm going to talk about where each school fell on ratings, but this is an overall summary of the ratings that they give, with exceptional being the highest, and then priority comprehensive being schools with the most need. So continue to work, specifically at every school, but particularly those schools in the areas that they need the support. We did have 2 schools that ranked commendable, both Mulberry and Grant this year. On the next slide, Susan Clark also showed growth, and our high school went from a priority status to an acceptable status this year. So all of our schools really showed a lot of nice growth. The next slide shows how our district did overall compared to the state average. So the state average obviously is the little black dot that you see up there. This year we met participation, which is a big deal because if our kids don't test, then we get, kind of dinged, I guess, as for a better lack term, in all of the areas that student would possibly qualify in. And that actually is a challenge to get all of our kids to participate in assessments because some of our kids, if they're absent or they're online or they choose not to come, it's, we have to continue to work to get those kids assessed. So we met the state average for growth in math and language arts as well. And again, we're still continuing to work in all of these areas because we do still have some growth that we need to make as well. On the next slide, we met the state average in some of our post-readiness indicators. Also in ELA, we are in our first year of implementation for our new ELA curriculum, K-12. So we do hope to see a positive movement in percent proficient on the English language arts for next year. And then lastly, each year when they look at our schools, they look at all of our subgroups, and really all of our schools that are still targeted are based on targeted status because of IEPs. So in the schools, that's a big area of focus. And I know Becky and Susan Downs from the AEA are also working heavily with our schools in that area as well. So we continue to work there. Mulberry and Grant did not have any subgroups or support required. And then lastly, this is just a list of resources that you can go to if you had more questions, or obviously you can reach out to me and I can help answer those as well. And that is all I have unless there.
So again, remember back in October, we brought the vision scorecard before the board. We showed some of the growth we've made over the last couple of years there. The question came up, how do we compare to the state? And at that point, we hadn't had the updated 2023 reports available. Now they are. So you can go to these, you can search by school, by district, you can compare to other schools across the state. One thing to note, if you go to our district on this for 2023 and you look at chronic attendance, it's going to say we were over 30-some% chronic attendance, chronically truant. As we've been talking about, we know we made significant progress last year. What's reported on that 2023 report is from 21-22. So just keep in mind, if you see some pieces in there that don't make sense, certainly feel free to reach out. But also, sometimes in the fine details, you'll see graduation rate, attendance. A lot of times that's a year prior to that where that occurred. So we saw that improvement over the past year. That will be reflected next year when they release the 2024.
And I would add too, in chronic attendance this year, we are trending even better than we were last year, and we made huge growth last year. So I think we're on a positive trend for that. So that should help us for some of these measures.
Any question? Thank you, Joelle.
Thank you.
Thank you. So item B under board targets is Muscatine schools will utilize resources effectively and equitably. And then item C, students will learn in a positive and supportive environment. And Joelle, I think again.
I'm going to pass
Oh.
it to the great team tonight.
Okay, thank you. So they will be discussing the social studies curriculum. Please.
Hello. I know most of you one way or another, but there are some new faces on the board. So if you don't know me, my name is Leslie Bennett. I'm the principal at Grant Elementary, and I have a wonderful team here.
Hello, I'm Lainey Berry. I'm the curriculum specialist for the district.
Stacey Beatty, I teach sixth grade at Jefferson. Rachel Hanson, I'm the chair at Muscatine High School.
So these representatives have come here tonight just to review the social studies adoption process that we have begun. These are not the only representatives. Also not here tonight are Jen Fridley, the principal at Susan Clark, as well as Andy Whirling, the assistant principal at Muscatine High School. Do I have control? I do. Okay. So this curriculum adoption process has 6 phases. We have gone through or in the process of phase 4. So as you can see from here, phase 1 is to prepare. Phase 2 is to do the research into the possible curriculums. Phase 3 is to develop a plan for the pilot. And currently we are starting phase 4, which is piloting the possible curriculums. So this team is going to talk about that pilot process today.
Awesome. So I'm going to talk about phases 1 and 2, which we've already engaged in. We started by convening a team of K-12 teachers that taught social studies so that everybody had representation on the team. We also then reviewed the curriculum review adoption process, which is the same process we used when we looked at ELA curriculum last year. So it's basically the same, maybe scaled down just a bit. We then engaged in professional learning with the Iowa Department of Education to learn about best practices in social studies instruction. So could use that lens when we viewed their curriculum materials. We also had the opportunity to learn about something called the Draft Evidence Guide, which is obviously a draft, but it is a set of criteria that's being developed for a nationwide selection of curricular materials for social studies. So we're really excited to be one of the first to use that tool. We then had the opportunity to interact with the tool to learn more about it before teachers began using it in the next phase of the pilot. At the bottom, you can see a link to the team members. So there's lots of teachers that were on the original committee, and then there's also a pilot committee. They started the pilot today, so they've been really busy getting everything ready. Scott Comstock's been amazing getting us set up behind the scenes too with digital licensing and all that. So I wanted to give him a shout out. I see him back there. Phase 2, we started by taking time to look at the curriculum resources. Teachers use the draft evidence guides and examine them carefully. They submitted feedback using an online form, which allowed us to easily manipulate the data. So when we went to make decisions, we could look at that. Then after a couple weeks, we reconvened the team and we looked at the data that they provided through the feedback and then used that to guide our decisions and selecting the top 2 programs at each grade band. So there's a K-5 grade band, a 6-8, and then a 9-12 grade band. And we wanted to align as much as we could vertically and horizontally. We also then worked as grade levels, independent grade levels, to select units from the pilot programs that would align with the standards that students would be learning at that time in school. So there wouldn't be any gaps in instruction. And I'm going to turn it over to Stacy and Rachel to tell you more about the resources that we looked at.
So thank you, Lee. The list here shows you the resources we initially looked at and used those and reports criterion that Lainey mentioned. We're still in draft form. And it is a little deceiving on the list because Iowa has created their own social studies standards based on the C3 work that's used nationally, but Iowa took it a step further and created their own standards, which means there is really no curriculum that matches the Iowa standards. So we worked with Stephanie Wager, the state director of social studies, and she gave some suggestions, and then Lainey and Joelle gave us more, and worked through these to see which ones best meet the needs of our students. Unfortunately, we're not a Texas or California where textbook companies are saying, hey, we'll write a book just for you, because they're not doing that for the state of Iowa. So we worked really hard using those criterion from ed reports to try and identify the ones that best met our needs and our students' needs. So you can see K-5 had 4 different options. Only 3 of those were actual curriculum. The other was a set of primary sources that teachers would then have to create their own lessons from. And our group that met on the pilot committee really wanted a set curriculum that teachers had in front of them and weren't trying to create, again, for that consistency sake. We really wanted to K-12 have a consistent pathway for our students in learning social studies standards. And so 6 through 8, again, it looks like we had a really great list. Again, only 3 to 4 of those were a set curriculum. The others were some really amazing primary sources, but would require a lot of extra work on the teacher's end and would make it a little bit more challenging to maintain that consistency and equity that we want students to have. So our team decided we really wanted one that had the set curriculum and lessons that we could use in order to maintain that consistency all through K-12. And I'm going to let Rachel talk. 9-12 has their own set of wide variety of classrooms that we offer or subjects we offer at the high school. And that was its own area we had to work through to make it feasible for them as well.
Yeah, so, and I'll speak a little bit 7-8. So our 7th grade standards are unique in that in Iowa, we teach contemporary global studies, which doesn't really fit with anything. So if you want to make a lot of money, go write a contemporary global studies curriculum for Iowa, because there just isn't anything. So a lot of this was looking at what can we piece to work into that 7th grade curriculum. And then the 8th grade transition is easy, fairly standard U.S. history up through the Civil War, where we picked that up in high school at the Reconstruction era. At the high school level, our unique challenge is what should we prioritize? So we decided to prioritize the core, which for us is U.S. history, economics, and government, that all students are required to take in order to graduate. And so when we looked at resources, we wanted to prioritize material that would meet the Iowa standards, that would provide ample instructional resources and assessments, because all of those teachers who offer those required courses are teaching on a large team. So we want to be able to kind of unify around a common mission and vision. So what we settled on, this was a lot of work to try to articulate something that had a smooth learning progression, 7-8, and then through 9-12. We settled for our grade level bands at the middle and high school levels on 2 curriculums, TCI, and then Imagine Learning.
So TCI, the Teachers Curriculum Institute, has been around a long time, well known for doing really great work in inquiry, relevant and engaging materials that get students actively engaged, and really impressively like differentiated and scaffolded materials. And TCI for us was an easy kind of 7-8, 9-12 alignment because they pair well with US history, they pick up where the other leaves off, and they have a very clear progression of skills that we would scaffold middle to high school. Imagine Learning, the new platform is Traverse, and this is a brand new curriculum that's designed by world-renowned experts in education, Dr. Kathy Swan, who has done a lot of work actually developing the inquiry arc that we use for our standards in Iowa. She was instrumental in writing the C3 framework. And then Dr. Sam Weinberg, who created the Stanford History Education Group. A lot of those skills in disciplinary literacy and social studies, he's the leader. And so we are excited to try out a new platform there that is fully digital, plays well with student devices. And so those are the two that we've chosen to pilot for the middle and high school levels.
And to tag on to that with the K-6 for the ones that were chosen in the end, and they ditto everything Rachel just said. TCI is actually the curriculum that we used in the past at the junior high through 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. And obviously we really liked it. So we were excited to have the opportunity to look at their updated curriculum. And then, and you can see the bonus that it's K-12. So the consistency available there all the way through the district is a benefit as well. The Traverse for 6 through 8 was a little bit more challenging because the curriculum isn't actually going to be ready until June.
Stacy, I'm sorry, can you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
Normally I'm asked to back off because I'm too loud, so no problem at all. So the Traverse curriculum isn't actually going to be ready until June. So we're piloting some grade levels that are going to be a little bit more challenging for our students because 6th grade is going to pilot a 7th grade unit so that we save standards at a little bit higher level. And we're really excited about that. But their 6th grade curriculum that they have so far looks so strong that we didn't want to pass up this opportunity to be one of the first districts, to use it. So we're really, really excited for this opportunity. And then the Inquire Ed for the K-5 is one of the most highly recommended across the state. Many districts have already adopted it, absolutely love it, feel that it is really strong for all of their elementary standards. So we have some really strong options that we're piloting and anxious to see how those go. We started today. Day 1 went well, at least at 6th grade. Can't speak for the others, but 6th grade, day 1 went well. Just learning the TCI platform and getting used to it. But we look forward to what we have from here.
Yeah, so we started today at the high school level. We've got a team of econ teachers, so 2 econ teachers, 2 US history teachers, government teachers that were so excited. They were like, can we be on the pilot? So we're excited to be launching that in our core classes. Pilot teachers already received training in TCI, so we've gone through online training there. When we finish up this first pilot, we're looking forward to training with Inquire Ed, and then we're conducting walkthroughs. So I'm excited to be working with our department and kind of aligning this with our building goals and our department goals, but really excited about what we've seen so far in our pilot.
So then our next step is getting together again. Once the pilot is done, all those teachers will meet. We'll look through those same 6 criterion from the Ed Reports draft that we started with to analyze both of these final choices and determine which one we think is going to provide the most opportunity for our students to be successful. The committee will then bring that back to you in April, And throughout this whole process, continual communication, whether it's virtual meetings or emails, but constant communication. I know 6th grade has started a document of the lessons we're doing so we can kind of keep track of where each other are and what the students are receiving. So constant communication, bring that information back to you in April with our recommendation.
So phase 6 will be the implementation and communication of the district adoption plan. Obviously, the final recommendations will be shared with all stakeholders. And that implementation plan for next school year will be developed, which will include ongoing professional learning and support for whichever curriculum is adopted. All right, and I'm just going to open it up for questions.
I have had a couple parents and teachers approach me about, is this going to be K2 will K2 have, they're concerned about taking more centers time, social time away from K2 kids and having more curriculum with the already ELA. I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot.
I can talk a little bit about that. So we do have a schedule with minutes on paper, and it does allow for time for science and social studies, as well as center time and ELA time. But I think, in fairness, that we know what's on a piece of paper isn't always the realistic part of being in a classroom with kids. With that said, yes, we will allot time still for centers, science, and social studies and things like that.
And is this a state, is social studies a state mandate at this point for K2?
Yes,
All the,
it
from
is.
kindergarten up?
It is. Actually, I think it was like 2 or 3 years ago I think it was 3 years ago that it became mandated that social studies was taught. And our CKLA new curriculum for ELA actually has a lot of social studies and science in it, which the kids have just really enjoyed. But when talking with the representatives from CKLA and then looking at our social studies standards, the ELA curriculum was not written to cover all social studies standards.
So at the younger grades, would they be able to pick and choose a little more maybe? Or
Yeah, once we adopt whatever we're going to adopt, then we will sit down and look at it. So like, for example, this year they taught social studies, then they taught science, then they taught social studies and science. So it alternated for them, and we will continue to do that and choose units that align with that.
And maybe, I mean, I assume pull from the ELA as well to cover some of the
Yeah,
standards.
if we have some
Whatever
some
standards can be
that are taught,
covered
yes.
in ELA, we will do.
Yeah. And I think,
And I've heard nothing but good about ELA, so.
Yeah, no, it's been great.
very
And I would say, we have to be cognizant because kindergarten through 5th grade teachers are first year ELA curriculum, and it's a lot, right? Now they're going to go into social studies, then it will be math. So we have to be cognizant of when we do these adoptions about not overwhelming, them so much.
Well, and I just think we need to think about kids, the social skills they get from centers and those things
Yeah,
as well.
we will keep centers, and it's in our schedule now, and we will keep those.
Thank you.
Which schools are piloting this or some grant? Everyone is doing it.
It's all of our schools. So
Okay.
this time, in all of the junior high and the high school teachers that Rachel mentioned, at the elementary level, we asked teachers at the elementary level to choose to be on either math, science, social studies, or ELA. And if they were on social studies, then they're doing the pilot. If they were on ELA, we chose schools because it was such a massive undertaking.
Grade level representation for every grade level, as well as at least one RIP for every school.
Can we please, yeah,
There are
thank you.
4 representatives at each grade level up until like 5th grade. Then there are 3. And then, of course, all the junior high teachers are part of the pilot, and then the majority of the social studies department, the core department. So there's a great coverage as far as schools and teacher representation.
I have just a quick question. Do you think we would have a chance to look at the materials before you roll that around? I mean, especially, I was listening to Rachel talking about economics and government. This is really a great field of mine, so
Yeah.
I would love to look at it. if it's
Yes, we
possible.
will have our materials open, and we'll do, just like we did for ELA, we will open it up to the community to look at. And I want to just say one thing, Stacy and Rachel didn't give the enough credit to their background. They have both been instrumental on serving at the state level for social studies and doing all kinds of things. So they have been an immense amount of help in leading our teams and guidance. So we do appreciate them a lot too, so.
My question is kind of a partially with how his is, but first of all, I want to say is I can tell that you guys are, although you've had to work really with this, for how long has this been going on to get this together? Yeah, that you look like you're invested in it, and you are actually, I could see almost the excitement, that you are looking at for it. And so much so, I found myself kind of like with John, as in, oh, well, what's it look like? Because especially because you guys are the expert, and so I don't have a clue when you're saying, but the fact that you say that the TCI one is all alive, and I'm trying to vision, what does that mean? What kind of, does that mean that all of it is on televised or something? Or, how does that kind of work?
So it's really engaging. So there's a lot of hands-on activities, a lot of kinesthetic movement that's involved, a lot of partner work, group discussions, gallery walks, getting students active. So I think the Alive is they try to bring the topic alive. So instead of just studying history and the past, you do the work of historians. So you're put in the historian's shoes. Instead of just studying government, the government curriculum opens up with really what is civic literacy? What does it mean to be an informed citizen? What does public policy look like? And how might you be, making policy at your school? Like we've got Trey and Kira here, who I'm kind of partial to because they're some of our rock star Model UN students. Like we have a lot of great all-stars, but they're really wonderful. So students get hooked right away with doing the work of government officials, of geographers, of economists, of historians. So when they say it's alive, I think, that's what they mean, that they try to bring it to life. Yeah. And that's why we're excited.
Thank you for sharing the
Yeah.
excitement with us. Thank you. I mean, that's.
John, it's one thing to see the books and the curriculum, but you're always welcome. I guess I'll only speak for myself. You're always welcome to come into my classroom. Denny came in before winter break. You're welcome to come in and see it being taught as well anytime you'd like to.
Great work. Thank you, guys. Any more questions? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, the second item is the MTSS Part 2 with Becky and Paige.
Well, Paige and I were with you in October, and when we were here in October at City Hall, we presented some information around MTSS. It was part 1. And so we are back again this evening to continue our discussion with MTSS. And tonight we're going to be talking about behavior needs, so it's part 2. So tonight we will be providing a brief review of multi-tiered framework for supporting student needs. We're going to introduce some information on our MCSD Behavior Support Team, otherwise known as BEST. We're going to articulate the relevance of function when determining consequences for unwanted behavior. Then we are going to dive into the discussion and the creation of consistent, equitable, and progressive system of discouraging and responding effectively to inappropriate student behavior. So we're first going to start with part 1, and then we will dive into part 2, ending our discussion about information about a district-wide system for responding to inappropriate student behavior, K-12. Thank you. So in October, we talked about MTSS. MTSS stands for Multi-Tiered System of Supports. It is a whole school, data-driven, prevention-based framework. All schools in Iowa are required to use this model in how they respond to all student needs. In October, we talked about Tier 1, otherwise known as universal. So in Tier 1, 100% of students receive Tier 1 practices. It's focused on prevention, and a robust Tier 1 means that 80% or more of our students will experience success with these practices alone. It will also result in a positive school environment, improved student and staff attendance, and increased instructional time, which also aligns to increasing student achievement. Tier 2
is considered targeted supports. Even in a robust system, we know that 5 to 15% of our students may still require specialized intervention. Tier 3 is considered intensive support. We know even in a robust MTSS system, 1 to 5% of students may require individualized intervention plans and or wraparound support. So the key is layers of support. Just because data indicates that a student needs additional help, it doesn't mean that we take away the preventative support at Tier 1. As you can see in both of these diagrams, the green is from the bottom of the triangle all the way to the top.
So our question for this evening is, what if Tier 1 practices are being fully implemented and students' behavior needs are not improving, their behavior is not improving? There are structures that exist within our schools to ensure that students are able to access those targeted and intensive supports that they need. So first off, CEBA leads support teachers in the creation and implementation of Tier 2 behavior support plans. With Tier 2 interventions in place, students who are still struggling can be referred to building student success teams, or SSTs. Our SSTs work to provide that wraparound support to students and ensure that students do not fall between the cracks. Our SSTs at the building level are also who is responsible for referring to our district behavior support team. So our Muscatine Behavior Support Team is a multidisciplinary team that's made up of both district and AEA staff. Our support team members have training in ABA principles and advanced behavior skills so that they can help address the needs of students who require Tier 2 and Tier 3 behavioral support. The purpose of our district support team is to help teams identify the reason, or what we call the function, behind a student's behavior. So there are two important concepts of behavior here. Behavior serves a purpose, and if behavior continues, then it is being reinforced by something within the environment. So the district behavior support team conducts behavior assessments with students to help figure out what is motivating them to engage in that unwanted behavior. So one such assessment that we utilize is called ABC analysis. The ABCs of behavior are up here on the screen. A stands for antecedent, so it's what happens right before a target behavior occurs. Our target behavior can be either the inappropriate behavior that we want to see decrease or the appropriate behavior that we would like to see increase. And our consequence is what happens right after the target behavior. So in order to determine function, our team pays special attention to the consequences piece. So does the consequence that a student receives for their behavior, does it give or take away their access to something, to someone, or to some task? And does that particular consequence make the target behavior stop, continue, or change? So knowing the function of behavior figures out what we can change in the environment to get less of the behavior that we don't want to see and more of that behavior that we do. So to illustrate this, let's look at this hypothetical scenario. So again, this is a hypothetical. It does not speak to our current district policies or to any particular teacher's practice. However, it is really helpful because it illustrates why function of a behavior is more important than what the behavior looks like. Okay, so here's our hypothetical scenario. Let's say that there are 3 students in a math class that are regularly using their phones during instruction. The teacher in this scenario believes that all of the students who use their phones in class should be sent to in-school suspension. But unbeknownst to the teacher, each of the students has a different function behind that behavior of cell phone use in class, okay? So one of the students is tangible maintained. So her phone is her very favorite thing. Whenever she uses it, she is sent to in-school suspension, but the adult really doesn't care if she's on her phone as long as she's quiet and she's not being disruptive. So her cell phone use, given that consequence, is likely to continue. It's being reinforced. Our second student is attention maintained. So he knows that when he's using his cell phone in class, the teacher is going to redirect him and his friends are going to laugh and give him a bunch of attention, both peer and adult. So when he's sent to ISS, the adult that's in the room, he has a really great relationship with that person, and they chat about like what's going to happen over the weekend. They kind of catch up. His cell phone use in the classroom is also being reinforced because of that consequence and will likely continue in the future. Our third student is escape maintained. So he does not care for math. Math may be difficult for him. And he knows that using his phone will predictably get him kicked out of class. So his cell phone use is also being reinforced and will likely continue with the current consequence. So even though the consequence is the same for each of these students, it doesn't match the function of the student's behavior, and therefore it is very unlikely that it will stop the behavior from occurring in the future. The point of this is that just because the behavior looks the same, it doesn't mean that it should be responded to in the exact same way. More information is needed to ensure that the consequences that we're giving the students are effective at changing their behavior. So for instance, if the teacher is noticing that for each of those students, the current consequence is not working, one thing that they could do is seek additional support from either a SEBA lead or a member of our district behavior support team who could help in collecting data, conducting those assessments, and creating an actionable support plan that matches the student's function for engaging in the behavior. So if we know the function of the tangible maintained student, an appropriate consequence may be that when the student is sent to ISS, her phone is taken away and she's allowed to pick it up at the end of the day. If we wanted to reinforce the appropriate behavior, we might be able to, knowing that she really likes her tangible, give her breaks with her tangible when she engages in appropriate work completion behavior. An appropriate consequence for attention maintained student may be that when he is sent to ISS, the adult in the classroom limits the attention that she gives him. He may be asked to work in a separate area where his attention from other students is limited. Same sort of to flip it, if we wanted to reinforce our appropriate behavior, we could work in breaks with that preferred adult for the completion of work or staying off of his cell phone. The student who is escape maintained may need a totally different consequence altogether. So his work should follow him when he displays inappropriate behavior. He shouldn't get to escape from it when he engages in that inappropriate behavior. But he may also benefit from a work break schedule where he engages in work for a set amount of time and then is allowed to take a short break during, like from his math work. The team may also sort of consider additional factors. So for instance, they may find out that he's in need of additional academic support and would benefit from accommodations. So function-based interventions are what lead to behavior change. When it is determined that a student is in need of Tier 2 support, it is important that we start figuring out the reason behind their problem behavior, and the district behavior team can assist teachers through that process.
So now that we've discussed Tier 2 and Tier 3 structures and supports within our multi-tiered system, we are going to shift our focus to the creation of a K-12 system of response that is consistent, equitable, and progressive, and it takes into consideration behavioral best practices. As a district, our goal is to create and utilize a consistent, equitable, and progressive system of discouraging and responding effectively to inappropriate student behavior. A consistent system will help us ensure that behaviors that are similar in nature result in a similar set of staff responses. Consistent responses will help provide clarity for staff and for administrators on how problem behaviors should be managed at school. it also helps our students engage in appropriate decision-making. Our system must be equitable in that from building to building and from classroom to classroom, all Muscatine students and staff will have access to a school environment where they feel safe, they feel supported, and they feel accepted. A progressive system will help ensure that consequences are reasonable and that they're proportionate to the level of behavior displayed by the student. And it also aligns with our state policies. In order to create this system for consistency, equitability, and being progressive, we must provide guidance to administrators, staff, and families on appropriate consequences with levels of severity with certain types of behaviors. There are always going to be areas of gray. And when we are dealing with behavior and appropriate consequences, such as the age of the child, possibly their cognitive development, and risk factors in the environment, just to name a few.
So in defining behaviors by level of severity, we can help ensure that our responses are as consistent and equitable as possible. Our proposed system defines behavior types and categorizes them into 3 different levels. So we have level 1 being minor. So these are classroom managed behaviors. Level 2 would be major behaviors that are office managed. And level 3 are serious behaviors that are office managed and often result in more extreme consequences or a staff response. Level 1 behaviors include minor infractions that do not pose a significant threat to safety or cause significant disruption to our educational environment in our schools. Some examples of these may include verbal altercations that do not include threats, minor disrespect towards staff or peers, and refusal or task avoidance with minor disruption to the learning environment. Minor behaviors should be managed in the classroom and should include parent contact. Additional responses may include parent meetings, small group counseling support, or temporary removal from the classroom. Those minor behaviors that are recurring and don't stop after they are initially dealt with may result in some building administrator action and may warrant some of those tier 2 and tier 3 behavior support plans that we talk about. Level 2 behaviors are defined as more serious incidents that involve a greater degree of threat or disruption, but are not extreme in nature. Some may include physical altercations without injury. So contact is made, but no one was hurt. Threats of violence without a plan or means to carry them out. Severe disrespect. Those could be major behaviors. Major behaviors are managed by the building administrator and require staff to complete major office referrals. Parents are contacted. Additional consequences may include individualized skills instruction, the loss of privileges, time out in the office, and up to 2 days of out-of-school suspension. Our level 3 behaviors are serious in nature, and they require immediate response from the building administrator, and they may also require response from our building safety teams. Level 3 behaviors include severe incidents that pose a serious threat to the safety of students, to staff, or to our school environment. So arson, alcohol and substance-related incidents, substantiated threats of violence, and physical aggression with injury are examples of serious level 3 behavior. Serious behaviors require the same types of response that we talked about at level 2, but behaviors at level 3 may also warrant longer periods of in-school or out-of-school suspension and may also include recommendation for expulsion.
Currently, we are working to adopt a behavior flow chart to provide clarity and transparency for all staff, families, and other stakeholders regarding our system when we're responding to unwanted behaviors. This aligns with our work with TIL 360. At your tables, there are 2 examples that were shared with us from Mr. Kurt Slater, who has supported other districts outside of Muscatine in this area of creating behavior flow charts and a system. This is what they are using to communicate discipline procedures for each level of behavior. You have two examples. One is from Crown Hill, which is an elementary building. One is from Oak Harbor, which is from a high school perspective. Our next step would be to create our own version of this tool that aligns with our district policies and procedures. We want to ensure that what we adopt and all agree upon is effectively, it summarizes our district policies and procedures. It's easy to understand, it's easy to follow, and it allows for follow-up from students through administrators. It needs to apply K-12. Now, what we don't and have not yet determined is, do we need two? Do we need a K2 or K6 example and a 7-12 flow chart? That has yet to be finalized, but it is in the discussion. Do we need one K-12 or do we need two separate ones? So this evening we shared information about Tier 2, Tier 3, about our Muscatine BEST team, and we provided examples of behavior flow charts. So your assignment, the board, between now and January 22nd is to review these examples and provide us with your feedback. We have a board work session on January 22nd that is scheduled. You have access to a digital note catcher for recording your thoughts, your questions, and your considerations, in which we will review at that work session on the 22nd. Your input will also be shared with our administrative team as we continue to finalize our district system of response, which we hope to bring back to the board in February with a possible draft in our behavior flow charts. What questions might you have at this time?
My question, which, am I assuming correctly? Because first of all, this is very good information. I like what you've done and which to do to try to say, okay, if this happens or if this doesn't happen and that. And I think that will help show for the consistency area, because when you said consistency, my head went like this, because I know there's been some problems in the past when, and I should say that normally comes from families that they may not feel their kid got the same thing as the other kid, especially if both of them were part of the problem, so to speak, in that. And so that bears to the part about being that each and every individual one is a private situation and how we have to keep, that private for that part of it. But then from there, am I correct, either of you guys or Clint, because I was just looking back over our handbook, is there a way that we're able to emphasize some of this, as in how that tier says or anything?
Yeah, so you'll notice as they presented that information towards the end there, this does align to the new legislation. Remember, they set forth, they didn't define level 1, level 2, level 3, but that is in the handbook, right? So it's up to districts to go in and define what level 1, level 2, level 3 means, which is some of that information that was provided with you tonight. Again, then ensuring that it's being applied consistently across, whether by elementary, junior high, or high school.
All right, thank you.
Sneak in. All right, I'm going to say I actually don't have a lot of questions because I'm really struggling to wrap my brain around this. I kind of want to just rip it all up. So I'm going to take you up on this, do the homework through January 22nd thing. And maybe it's the examples, so I'm hoping that you'll provide the slideshow with me. But I just continued to kind of feel like we're creating a process where instead of setting expectations, we're creating opportunities for negotiation. And I think that that's a really large distraction, and it's a disservice to our students. So I want to make sure that we talk about this a lot. I think we've done a lot of work already as a district, so I appreciate comparisons to other districts and what this has given you, but I'm also thinking we have this. So what's wrong with like the minors and the majors that we have? I think implementation and how we respond within our buildings is a problem. And so instead of recreating or borrowing and all of that stuff, I wish that we would take a tool that we have and use it and work with it instead of reteaching all of our teachers and setting like more work for them. I guess so I'm gonna need a lot of time, but.
Is this, I understand the flow chart idea, but is there consistency across the district for SST teams and the whole process of getting kids the support? Does everybody have the same form? Is that every SST, same referral process? I think that is of utmost importance as well, because I'm going to be honest, I've been on probably 15 different SST teams, and none of them have been consistent, and I don't know if that's changed. I'm not saying it hasn't, but that creates a lot of stress for parents, a lot of stress for teachers. If it was a district-wide process across the board, are we working toward that? Do we have it?
All buildings have an SST
Yeah,
team
yeah.
that meets regularly. All SSTs do have a referral process.
But it's not the same in every building, correct?
I don't know if every form looks the same, but the end result is the same.
That's where I'm struggling, because I think there's a big difference in the process, how long it takes, who does what, who's in charge of what. I just would like to see that streamlined and perhaps simpler, and not simpler as in quicker, but simplified, the process simplified and more concrete, so that teachers feel this. I really think teachers don't feel the support that they need to feel. And if we could structure it so that they could actually see what's happening, and I'm not sure I'm saying this the way I should, but so that they know that every building's getting the same, that this is what's going to happen next, it's going to happen within a certain time frame, and they're not just, I know some teachers feel like they're wasting their time doing some of these forms and stuff because nothing ever happens. So I hope that we're working toward streamlining that and making it more efficient and more effective in the process.
That is our end goal. Yes, yes, absolutely. K-12.
I would just say too, I mean, going through this stuff, I know we set policy all the time, we review them, even if we read them 3 times, but still throughout this, and there's something we need to change, please bring that up too.
And again, I think that, go ahead, and if you have a question, the important piece is, this isn't just, we're going to present in front of you and move on. It's an ongoing conversation, ongoing learning, and it's happening at our buildings, and it's happening with our administrative team, so that we can be more consistent and provide support to students and ultimately to staff as they need it.
Any more questions? Well, I can see that we will have a lot of discussions on the 22nd. It's a great information to start with. So thank you, Becky and Paige, for the presentation and the information. I'm sure you will hear from, I would say, all of us once we get that. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
So with that, we move forward to the superintendent updates.
Thank you, John. Just a few things tonight. One, certainly this past week, our thoughts have been with the Perry, Iowa community. And again, hard to imagine that kind of tragedy. But I did want to just update you, because that question always comes back to, well, what about us, right? And, no one's immune to this. How do we continue to prepare as best we can for any event? One of the things we've talked about is that security grant through the state that provides $50,000 of funding per building, kind of where we're at with that. So that has been submitted. There's been ongoing work with the state to get that approved. So it hasn't been finally approved yet. We can't spend the money until that gets done. I would say, and Chris is here as well, it certainly is very close. A big portion of that is continuing to upgrade our camera system, as well as a crisis response app which will help that communication process, both to initiate if there is an issue, which would connect us to emergency response personnel, communication throughout any type of incident, in between staff members and across the district, including law enforcement, and then after an incident. And that's not a system we have in place yet. This would provide funding for that as well.
Yeah, we're just waiting on the final approval, so it's down to the last run. It's been quite a process to get it approved, so it'll be a good day when they finally give us the go.
And part of that, the only thing we could apply for within that was when they came through and did the evaluation, the audit by building, anything they identified in that audit, then we can put in there. So there have been some pieces we put in there that we thought we needed that weren't approved because they weren't a part of that evaluation. And those are certainly things as we move forward, we can continue to assess in other ways. I would also say last year, we had a scare when, we had something reported that didn't happen. And we learned from those situations as well. And some of that is through communication. But one thing we did see was a very quick and very strong response from law enforcement, which is something I'm very grateful for and our community should be proud of. But even in those situations, you learn about things in communication that you can continue to improve. And that's something ongoing process as we do drills and work with law enforcement to be as prepared as we can be. So, any questions about that? Okay. Thanks, guys. Calendar, I just wanted to update you. As you know, we'll be bringing calendar recommendations to you for final approval in February. We put 4 calendars out to staff, to community, to kind of weigh in on. Right now, we've had 720 responses, which I think is good. And then right now, our calendar C is kind of leading the way. So really, I believe A, B, and C are all kind of variations on the same theme, right? You really, when you build a calendar, the state sets the earliest we can start school. And next year, it's August 23rd. So in some of the comments that we received, they're like, well, you should start earlier so we can end early. Well, we can't. We can't start any earlier than August 23rd. And then after that, we have to be in school a certain number of days. We have breaks that are built in. So it starts to put the pieces together. So within that, we can move where certain days fall, where conferences fall. So the different calendars represent really different scenarios on that theme. I will tell you, D, the last option, the big difference from that is it's more of that traditional, we start on the 23rd and finals are after winter break. So A, B, and C are more like this year where we end semester 1 at winter break, and D is after winter break. And I'll tell you, that is the least popular option that is out there right now. So again, the intent is to get feedback on this, comments back. We can use those comments to kind of shape that final calendar. Obviously, we'll bring the one that has kind of the strongest support, and then from there, as a board, you'll make a final recommendation. So just wanted to give you an update where that we'll talk more about that also at our work session in January, and then that will be brought to you for final approval in February. Okay. Calendar questions?
I had a question. We'll finish up with the calendar questions, I guess. But I had a question. $50,000 per school.
Correct.
If a school only requires, say, $35,000,
you can't move that money,
move it to a
that
different school.
15,000. No,
Might be greater.
they get 50,000, and
Thanks.
and,
Well, I was just curious.
and we're spending that 50,000 for each building.
Right.
Yeah. So then there may be greater needs than that, but that's what has been allotted for that. Good question. So a couple more things quick. One, welcome to the new boardroom. So tonight is really our first full session here. We're broadcasting this It is going out live to MPW. Just want to thank a lot of people, our technology team, Scott has just done a ton of work, our maintenance and facility staff, Daphne. I mean, so many people have put time and energy into creating this space. I think it's going to be a fantastic space for a district and for our community. So I just want a special thanks to them. So, and then the last thing, as Trey mentioned earlier, we do have some weather coming. I can tell you every weather, anytime we have a weather incident, it's always different, right? When it comes in, what the models say, and so you have to take each one as a kind of a unique scenario. I believe it's already started snowing as it was predicted to do. Oh no, we can't see it because the window, but Tony's giving me a head nod. Yes, it is snowing outside. We know it's starting now and it's really going to continue through early Wednesday morning. So the models, a lot of times there's multiple models and they're kind of all over the place. I will tell you, the models have been pretty converged over the last 24 to 48 hours, and even through the day have only increased in what they're predicting for snowfall. So with that being said, we will be making an announcement tonight that we will be canceling school tomorrow based on that. Right now, the prediction for our area, again, over that kind of 24-hour period is close to 14 inches of snow. Now, whether we'll get that much, I don't know. I sat in on a webinar this afternoon. A lot of superintendents asking the National Weather Service the same question, like, are we going to get snow? Because there's nothing worse than making that call, right? And I'm going to get complaints either way, and then it doesn't show up, right? The gentleman from the National Weather Service said, you're going to get hit. Maybe it's 8 inches instead of 14. You're going to get hit tomorrow, at least in this banded area. So we know that's going to come in. We know there's going to be some winds that will impact that. So again, given that it's already started snowing, we know the prediction models are very tight. We're going to go ahead and make that call, and as we conclude the meeting, we'll start getting communication out. Like I said, it's never an easy decision. Sometimes it's easier than others, right? Again, National Weather Service this afternoon said that they haven't seen a storm like this since 2011. So this is, again, something unique. We know there'll be some additional weather later in the week and into next week, so we'll continue to monitor those as well and then make decisions from there. So any questions, Trey?
Way to go, Trey.
I can see a big smile on his face now.
Any questions for me?
What about Wednesday?
You just couldn't leave well enough alone. We'll monitor that through tomorrow. Again, a big factor of that is when the snow ends and what the winds do. Winds will play a big impact on that. And sometimes we've seen, I think the city and the county response plays a big part of that, right? There are times when it snows hard enough where they just stop plowing. If they stop plowing, it's going to be hard for anybody to get things cleared and ready to go. So we'll continue to monitor that, but we'll be out checking it out and keeping an eye on it, and we'll communicate as soon as we are able to.
Thank you, Clint, for the updates. And indeed, it's good feeling to have a board space here in this building. So that's a great space.
And John, one last thing related to snow that I do need to add in conversation with Riverbend Mobile Food Pantry. So we did cancel for tomorrow ahead of time. Just again, the coordination of getting a truck from Davenport here tomorrow afternoon and back just did not look like a good option for us. And Riverbend didn't feel it was a good option either. And then the problem of rescheduling is they already have so many dates scheduled and different sites scheduled. So looking at when they would be able to reschedule that puts us almost into next month. So we will be canceling this month's food pantry. We'll be back in February again, and we'll go from there. So what we announced is that it's canceled for tomorrow. We'd be working on a rescheduled date, but for January, that will be canceled.
Thank you. With that, we move into next item, action, possible action. The following items are considered to be routine by the Board of Education and will be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion of these items unless a director so requests, in which event the item will be removed from the consent agenda and considered in its normal sequence from the agenda. The items are minutes, number 2, bills and claims, number 3, employment recommendations, number 4, special education and regular education contracts, and number 5, interfund transfer, general fund and pepper. What are the wishes of the board?
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. So this will take us to item G on our agenda, which is we need a motion to approve and place on file the FY23 financial audit. What are the wishes of the board?
Motion to approve and place on file the fiscal year 23 financial audit.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving and placing on file the FY23 financial audit, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. Next item is to approve the audit agreement between MCSD and Bohansik and Farmer LLC for FY24 through FY28. What are the wishes of the board?
I make a motion to approve the audit agreement between MCSD and Bonesack and Fromell LLC for year 24 through year 28.
Second.
So I have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, all those in favor of approving the audit agreement between MCSD and Bohansik and Fromell LLC for FY24 through FY28, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, motion carried. With that, we move into our discussion and information. And item A is second reading on policies. One policy we have, 201.4, elections of the board. Any question on this policy? Okay, as you know, each policy goes through 3 readings. We still have one more chance, so if you have any question or any edits or recommendations, please send that to Daphne. The second item, item B, is the announcements, meetings, and events. So as Clint already mentioned, with the January 9, the Riverbend Mobile Food Pantry will be canceled tomorrow. And whenever we get any information on future dates, if it's before next month, I'm sure the district will announce that. So the next item is January 11, Central Building Open House from 4 to 7. And January 13, Central Building Open House 9 to 12. And I assume the community will be involved.
Yes, and that has been out, and we can certainly talk more about that. But yeah, the idea is that those are times that are open for the community to come through. Tony's been promoting that out on social media, both as an opportunity to walk through and see the building one last time, but also there are many items there that, you know, people may be interested in purchasing. And those are things that we worked on a process that they can identify them, that we can put them into a public surplus auction for purchase and so on.
Do you know when that auction will open?
Did you say when will it open?
Yes, sorry.
So basically,
in the walkthrough, if people identify something, we'll have them mark that.
Okay.
Then it'll take us a little bit of time to get that pictures taken, uploaded onto the site. So we're hoping by mid next week, we'll have everything uploaded onto the site, and then it'll be open, for 7 to 10 days, and then they'll schedule time with maintenance department to have somebody meet them there to pick up their items.
Do those funds go into like PEPAL or general fund, or where do the funds from the auction go?
That's a good question. My
Sorry.
guess is it
I'll
would
ask
end
another
up
time.
being in general fund, where we could direct it wherever.
Thank you.
No, I'm gonna, sorry.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry, no. Communication, as I always say, is such a factor. Even to this day, it's amazing how many times on, say, for example, on Facebook, I have somebody that doesn't know or understand, of course, of what is going to be kept up or not of the building. And so that to the fact that we're going to have this open house, I hope how we're able to make sure that we're able to connect with the public so that they are aware of it, more to do, and about the auction, I think is going to be important so that they feel a part of, what is going on with it. Because I think part of it is nostalgic, but the other part of it is what they can get out of it, and just the fact that they can maybe kind of see for themselves the why and reasons why, that we feel as if we have to go forward this way. So make sure on how the communication works, please.
Okay, thank you. So back to the announcement is now January 15th, non-contract day, no school. January 15th, preschool registration for 2024-25 for 3 and 4 year olds at Muscatine Learning Center. January 22nd, school board work session at 6 p.m. here at the MCSD Admin Center, and we'll meet here in the boardroom. January 25th, 2-hour early dismissal. January 26th, teacher in service, no school. January 26th, MHS booster cake auction. And February 12th, the school board community conversation at 5:30 p.m. at the admin center here. And the same date, February 12th, we'll have our regular board meeting at 6:15 at the admin center in this board meeting, in this boardroom. Any other announcement? Okay, so do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make the motion to adjourn.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose? Okay, good night and drive safely.